What's up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and today I'm going to be taking you through how to make yourself a PDPS bow. Um, so there's a lot of different ways to do this. The things that I want to point out are the ways that I do it. I've made I think I've made I think 8, maybe 9 bows, like 600 minimum PDPS. I've made one that's 1,000. I've got the one that I'm using, which is like 763 with perfect crit, good attack speed, stuff like that. Um, so I've made a lot of bows, and I have a method that I use that you can consistently make something in this like 600 to 750 range, pretty reliably, and it's pretty much just the best method that I've found after crafting. I mean, you guys know if you watch my channel. If you don't, I play a lot of bow characters and I craft a lot of PDPS weapons because PDPS has just always been the best. So I do try to get as perfect as items as I can get. But that being said, when you're crafting your first bow, you just want to make sure that you're getting something in this like really that like really good range, where it's just going to be able to obliterate everything. Then everything past that is just going to basically be like icing on the cake. Um, so that's what I want to let you guys know how to make. And I'm going to also talk about the different ways to make bows, some of the other methods, and the reason why I don't use those methods, or usually won't use those methods. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to wind up our goal in order to use the crafting method that I use is to get yourself a base. You want to first make it 30% quality. 30% quality. If you want to get something like physical modifiers have increased effect, that's going to give you some extra damage. You could go for a synthesis, and then there's the other options. So synthesis, if you're going to go for synthesis, you can obviously go for something like an additional arrow. That's going to be good. Obviously, it's going to cost you a lot. I had a low level one, and I sold it I was kind of selling it fast. I think I sold it for 45 EX. And then you go up to, I mean, if you're getting an 86 one of those, you're talking about like a mirror, just for your base. So, and if you're buying something like that, you probably are going to be using one of these methods till you hit basically perfect rolls. But, most people, you want to get the best bang for your buck. I think that's going to be the position that most players are going to be in. They want to get the most out of their currency. They want something crazy good, but they don't want to spend possibly all the currency they make in the league and never wind up with a bow. So you need a good reliable method to get there. I will say that crafting a 600, 650, 700, 750 DPS bow is not cheap. There's crafting methods that will definitely get you a bow like that, but it does take time to set it up, and then it does take time. It does take currency for each roll. Depending on how nice you want it is going to depend on how much it's going to cost. Prep work. If you go for physical modifiers, that's going to add, at least every once in a while you get them cheap, like under an EX. Right now, I believe it's about 1.5 EX to 30% it. Absolutely, you should be doing that. If you're planning on crafting this bow, 1.5 EX to have 30% quality, you should just get that done. If you're like farming Syndicate and you're going to have a free 30% through Mastermind, then yeah, you might be like, all right, I'm just going to save it because I know I'm going to get this. But for me, even when I was farming Syndicate, I don't want to have to farm it to get it. I want it to be done. I want to put my 30% quality on it, then craft it. Then when it's done, it's just done. I can immediately start using it. I'm not missing out on 10% damage. So that's my feeling on that. You can take my advice or leave it. Well, you can do that on all of this. The next thing, and this is going to be basically the most time-consuming of the ventures. You can do it the fastest way, or you can do it the cheapest way. One way that you can do this, which what I'm talking about is getting it basically to the point where it's at right now, which is where you have tier 1 number physical, and then you have a dual mod percent physical. You'll understand why we do it this way when I talk about the next step, but this is the goal. Pretty much, this is the first place where, depending on how much you want to spend, is going to depend on where you set how good it's going to be. So the best you could possibly get, is tier 1, which is going to be way harder to hit. Obviously, you're going to wind up with a better item. But you're talking exponentially increasing the amount of currency and time that is going to cost. And you have to also remember that there is going to be a possibility of failure on this, that you have to restart. The probability that you hit that you hit the right side is going to be 1 out of 2, and then the probability that you're going to hit the chosen dual mod physical, any one of the 4, which any one of the 4 it's going to be a keeper item, because the main thing we're looking for is to get that physical DPS up there. Obviously there's one mod that I would consider the best, which is the blinds, because it's the most useful over all builds, which would definitely add value to it. But so then once again, if you're like, I only want that 1 out of 4, now you have to multiply the expected cost by 4, because the probability is you're going to have to do it 4 times as much before you hit that, which means you have to expect that I'm going to have to recreate this, and if I miss it and I miss the null orb, I'm going to have to reset up the base all over again. So you're going to have to pick your points on these. My best one so far this league was this one, which is tier 3. Anytime I'm getting something that's not like tier 7, tier 8, I'm going to go ahead with it, because 1 tier up is like 10%. And just because of the cost of getting it to that point, and the time invested, pretty much when I get it to this point, it's worthwhile finishing, because, if I just finish it to finish it, I could probably sell it. If I wind up just keep on chucking currency at it until, if I was like, I only want tier 1, I wouldn't have a bow yet, at all this league. I haven't hit one yet. So, and I've spent hundreds and hundreds of exalts crafting bows. So that should give you an idea of, if you're like, I absolutely want tier 1 plus dual mod, then you better be prepared to spend 500-600 exalts and possibly not have a bow. I think the triple tier 1 natural, we were calculating it yesterday, it's like 227,000 exalts is expected to hit the triple tier 1 natural. So that gives you an idea. This way, I would say to get it to this position, probably you should expect, if you do it the fastest way, which is just to use fossils, I'm going to say that based on the current fossils, I'd say probably an average to get it there of 5 EX. And that's just to get it set up how it is right now. The thing that you have to understand is sometimes you're going to wind up missing it. So sometimes I could wind up getting these 2 mods, and then there's another mod there that is bad, which then means I have to annul it off, which means I have a 1 out of 3 of not having to redo it. So you got to keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons why just hitting the tier 2 with the dual mod isn't the only thing. The other thing is, and this example is going to shine through, so pay attention, adding an influence first can increase your probability of hitting both the number physical and a dual mod. The reason why is because some of the influences also have dual mod physical. It doesn't have as much physical as the natural one that's on there, and it's going to cut out some options for finishing them, which could wind up making your end item not as good or harder to finish to get the same level of an item. So the one that we're going to be finishing today, I did the harder way, so that the finish would be stronger. And it totally turned out that that's the way that it was best, because if it already had an influence on there, I would be either having to slam it with just a random exalt, or I would have to multi-mod the bottom. So yeah, that wouldn't be optimal, because you multi-mod, basically then you have a 5-stat item. So you just don't wind up with as good of an item, basically. So starting off with the gray base and having the option of slamming it with an exalt once you've finished your top and you're working on your bottom will wind up making it so that you can finish with a stronger item with not as much hassle. And we'll go over that before I finish that item. Okay, so at this point, what you're going to do, you have to have an open prefix, and you have to have these two prefixes. Whatever dual mod that you would be happy with here is, going to be determined by you. Then what you're going to do is, and I'm not going to actually do it to this, but then what you would do is you're going to take and craft on prefixes cannot be changed. And I don't have any of the. I ran out the orbs. Do I want in here? Okay. So what you're gonna do next is you're going to get one of the syndicate orbs, the veiled chaos orbs, and when you make sure you have prefixes cannot be changed on the top, and an open prefix. Then you're just going to hit the bow with the veiled modifier. If it shows up on top, you're going to have a very high likelihood, it's a 60% chance, basically, that you're going to wind up hitting one of the percent physicals, or right around there. And we'll go and look at this. So this is bows. So there's 4 mods that are going to show up on here. So out of the pool, you have about a 20% chance on each one that it's going to show up there. So I think it's between like a 50-60% chance. So it's over a 50% chance that one of them is going to wind up being percent physical. So it's a 50% chance it's going to be prefix or suffix. So that gives you 50% chance for top. So then it being the top, you're going to have about a 50% chance. So expected, it's going to be 4 rolls. That's 80x you should expect on this step. It can fail and leave an open prefix. In some situations, and this is another nice thing about having a non-influenced base. For instance, let's say it adds a suffix to it, and it winds up being something that's really good for it. Let's say it gives us one of the attack speeds with attributes for this TS Omni, and there's still an open prefix. So now I have an open prefix, the veiled modifier, my 2 physical modifiers, and I have 2 open suffixes. I could multi-mod and craft on the 129% damage, and I could craft on one more stat, or I could craft on the 129% physical. Then I could Warlord Slam the bottom, which would guarantee me one of these stats, which are all good, just general bow mods. There's also Redeemer, also is all good stuff that would work over general builds. I think the Warlords is the strongest as far as slamming. Coaling Strike, percent physical with Maim, percent chance to gain phasing, and skills fire an additional projectile. So all that stuff's good. There's no lose situation there. And then this situation that I'm talking about on the bow would really only be applicable if you hit the attack speed, because you're really going to want attack speed on the weapon, just because it's in most cases going to be the best damage increase to the weapon. Sometimes it might help your build more to have critical. And that's the reason why we're hoping for the physical up top, so that then we can make a weapon like the one that I'm going to be showing you guys and finishing for you. Okay, so what we're hoping for is one of the physicals, but there are some situations where you're going to wind up with some combination produced from the orb on the bottom when half the time it hits down there. That's going to result in something that you would want to finish, and in that case, having the ability to slam on a guaranteed good stat with the Warlord Slam after you first craft on your physical, because you would not want to have an open prefix and then slam it with the Influence Orb, because if you did that, you've got physical damage over time, fire damage, fire penetration. So if you have one of those things and you don't care about the PDPS, this really isn't the right video for you. So those would all be losing situations. So you'd want to craft on your percent physical first. We can craft on up to 129%, which is not as strong as this dual mod. That's the reason why we're going for it. It's 139%. This is just a better mod. So yeah, that's something you should pay attention to, and you should really look at like what the weapon's going to come out. I would recommend before you decide or go ahead with an item, if you're unsure what the final product's going to be like, craft it inside of Path of Building. It's a pretty easy thing to do. You can just go download Path of Building Community Fork. You can just go into your items once you're inside of your build. You go over to craft an item. You're going to go down to your bows. You put in your base type. Bow. We're doing a thicket bow. And then I'm going to put on whatever the mods are. So you can just manually type in all the different mods, and it's going to tell you the DPS. Then you can actually add it to your build and see what it's going to do to your build. I highly suggest this if you don't craft a lot. What you don't want to do is you don't want to craft something and think it's going to be more than what it is or something like that, or you don't want to think it's going to be less than what it is and you delete it and then find out later how good of a weapon you could have had. So it's always going to be a good idea to go ahead and hop in here. What I like to do is I like to put the mods close to perfect, because using the divining through harvest, you can get pretty close to or perfect items using the divines. I normally start off with the one that divines the whole item, and then once one of the sides winds up good, because it's basically divining both sides, then once one side is like perfect, usually going to be the bottom first, then you use the divine a specific side, and then you're going to be able to get both sides like perfect, and then you can actually get to that close to perfect item. I mean, if you just have a ton of currency, divines aren't that expensive, you could just spam and spam and spam and spam. But Keurig is pretty awesome. That's probably the best way you could use Keurig missions, is for farming for easy to get harvest mods. So that would be my suggestion there. It'll save you a bunch of currency and put to use those Keurig missions, and probably one of the best ways that you can use him. Okay, so the Veiled, basically you could decide, I'm just going to go forward until I wind up hitting my two mods. So this is a version of this bow that would be the next stage. Actually, this one's not even as nice. This one's actually lower than this one. Okay. Anyways, so this one, they're basically the same item. This one's a little bit higher, but this one's in the finished state. I wound up getting the blinds on this one, so that's really nice. At this point, I have a tier 5 critical on here. I'm not going to keep that personally. I want something better as a starting point for that. So this one's just kind of like the only thing that I finished is the top. This would be the first stage to go forward to do the Veiled Chaos Orb Slam. Once you have the dual mod physical on it, then you would go to the next stage. Now we'll do the one that we're actually going to finish. Okay. So this one is not divined. It's actually got quite a bit more damage gain on it, but we've gotten a tier 3 attack speed. Goes up to 13%. It's the same as the top crafted. To give you an idea, you should always look at what the odds are. How I got this on here was by taking and doing. Let's bring this back up. So once I got it to the point where the previous one was, where all 3 top mods were there, then what you do is you craft on prefixes cannot be changed. and then you're going to go for whatever it is that you want. There's there's three good ways to go about this. One would be crit modifiers plus more critical. This is a good way to go at it, and the reason why is because you can wind up hitting both critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier. If you hit a high critical strike chance and high critical strike multiplier, then you can just craft on a 13% attack speed. You're done. Realistically, I don't know why. Maybe it's just this league. I've had bad luck with using the crit more critical, but it seems to me like almost every single time I've tried to do crit more critical on a bow, it always is rolling me like super low mods, and then I'm just not. It's like rolling me one mod and it's low, but technically that should be probably the most efficient way to finish it. If you wind up rolling crit plus crit, and you only get one mod, so if I got a high critical, this would be the point. So if like I got tier 1 critical or tier 1 multiplier, that would be the point that, you know, you would Warlord slam it, craft on your attack speed, you're done. Tier 1 critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier, attack speed, you get any of those things, or, you know, additional arrows, something like that. Unless you're planning on spending a ton, there's no reason to really roll over that. I'm just going to say that, and I'm going to give you some examples. So for the attack speed, the way that if I'm like 100% I want attack speed, what you have to understand, we have this right here. We've got the tier 3 attack speed, which is 1,000 chance, and this is the best rolling group besides the criticals, because the criticals, the only things that are possible to roll, it's guaranteed to give you a critical. So this would be the next one, would be the attack speed. So at tier 3, it's still 1,000 stats, so these first three are evenly weighted. When you get to tier 1, tier 2, this is going to be a 500 stat, so it's half as likely on both of these that you're going to get one of these. If these were the only speed tagged mod, you could roll speed, and you would have 500 if I wanted the tier 1. 500 out of 4,000, it would be a 1 out of 8. So that would mean that my expected number of times that I'm going to have to roll would be 8 times to get my tier 1, which that would mean 16 EX to get that tier 1. That's not the only speed mod. Luckily, there's only 2, but the weight on increased projectile speed is higher. It's 5,000, which means we have a 500 if we wanted the tier 1, 500 out of 9,000, which means it would be 18 rolls. So if we only wanted tier 1 attack speed, we would expect that it would take us 36 exalts to get to tier 1 attack speed. I do want to say, if you're going to roll specifically for attack speed, don't use attack speed more attack speed. The reason why is because you only want the attack speed, you don't want projectile speed. Having projectile speed on there will block you from doing a Warlord slam, which the Warlord slam is going to 100% be better than projectile speed unless you have something that's gaining bonuses from projectile speed. That's the only way that you would want to roll speed more speed. Okay. So if I were to be like, all right, I want just T1 or T2, that would be 1,000 out of the 9,000. That would be the 1 out of 9. So that would mean that, you know, I'm expected to spend 18 exalts before I hit one of those two. Saying that, you know, I want tier 3 or, you know, tier 1, tier 2, you know, that goes down. Now we're at 9,000 divided by 2,000. So it'd be like, that's expected 9 exalts because it's like 4.5. So you see what I'm saying, that it goes down. Personally, this is where I'd want to be. And the reason why is because, like, putting on something that's lower than the crafted, I actually rolled on this specific bow a 10%, and I rolled over it, and the reason why is because it's lower than crafted. But maybe that's what you're happy with. I'm just saying, I think for another expected 9 exalts going for that, if you've put all this into the bow, I think that at least going that far is worth it. Rolling past this, you're talking about getting into like 20 exalts, 36 exalts. That starts being like I'm doubling the cost of my bow, or possibly more than doubling the cost of my bow. Because even with that good base, we say like 5 ex for the base to be ready, and then it takes, let's say, 5 ex to get it into rolling and hitting, and then with the cost of the rolling, let's say the estimated cost is 8 ex, we're at like 18 ex. So 9 more ex, we're at 27 ex to have it in the state where we finish it, and then we just warlord slam it, and then we warlord slam, then craft on our last stat, and for around 30 ex, we have around 650 to 700 DPS bow. If I'm like, I want that T1, now it's going to be 60 to 80 ex bow. So that's kind of what I'm saying. You really got to pick where you want to be. It's kind of like, yeah, I could have held out longer and spent 10 ex on the first stage, and then it would be 750. Or I could have gone 4 times as much, and then it would be 800 or something like that. And the higher up you get, the higher up you get, it grows exponentially. Normally, like every step you're taking is going to be like at least double. As you can see with like the same weight on those ones. The ones that get really bad are these ones, and this is why. Because you see here, it doubles here, and then it doubles here. So going from this, which is what I have on my main bow, it would cost twice as much it would be a 2 times multiplier here, and there would be a 2 times multiplier on this. So you're talking about just like so much harder to hit, and it's the chances of hitting those together. Like this one, the reason why this craft works out pretty well, and the reason why I don't suggest doing the essence crafting, is because essence crafting basically gives you a tier 2, and this is really reasonable. A 200 stat for the number to number is really reasonable comparative to the other stuff. So if you're going to focus on something, this is going to be the base damage that you're bumping up. This one's hard to hit, and the reason why we don't try to hit all these together is because the tier 3, which is kind of in the range of our dual mod, is twice as hard to hit as our as our tier 1 flat physical. So that's the reason why I've picked to do it this way, because it is just mathematically the strongest bow that you can get for the investment. Plain and simple. Mathematically, the best bow you can make for the best price. And I experienced that. I've done a lot of bows. Like I said, this league, I think this is my 8th or 9th bow that I've completed. And as you can see, my inventories are just like full of bows that I'm messing with. Like I have a lot. I think I have at least 5 right now I'm working on. Actually, no, 6. Oh yeah, and I forgot about my EA bows. So actually, I've definitely done way more than 8. Anyways. Okay. So we're at this point. We're going to go ahead and finish it. If you guys have any questions about anything, like why you did this, why you did that, it's a lot to cover. I'm trying to give you the reasons, because there's the popular methods. This is the way that I do it. Other popular methods, people start off with like alterations. They do the imprint beast, which imprints have been like crazy expensive. So for most players, it's just completely not even viable. That is also a more expensive way of crafting generally, but imprint beasts are like super up there this league. So that would be, like instead of talking about like having a bow at like 30 EX or somewhere around there, you're talking about hundreds, more than likely. Would you wind up with something better? Probably spending a lot more, yeah. But you'd wind up with something better, if you bought, a mirror base. So if you want the best bow for the best price, this is the way to go about it. Like I was saying, I'll touch on this real quick. With the essences, you do have this number physical. There are a lot of essences this league, but it's basically like a tier 2. And basically what you're doing is you're just spamming them until you hit a high percent physical. Normally what people are doing is they're using this tier 2, and then they're spamming to try to hit the tier 1 on this, which is a 25 stat. So that's going to be a lot of essences. You're talking about a lot of currency to get to that point. And the thing is you're going for basically 2 stats, but then the issue is you're either trying to hit not only this one that's a 25 stat, but then you're also trying to hit this dual mod at the same time. Or you're winding up then taking and doing a harvest craft and just slamming it with this like wild, like I hope that I get something kind of approach, which is going to result in you probably missing a lot of times before you hit, and it's going to take you a really long time to hit. So just a way more expensive method, and it's going to be harder to buy the resources. Like I can go out and just get my 5 EX worth of rerolls in just, you know, a stack, a couple, like a couple inventories of stacks, buy them like that, and then just, you know, drop out a ton of fossils, put them in resonators, click them in, and then just click, 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 click. It's faster, faster, cheaper, and it's going to produce a better item more reliably. Okay, so you got to figure out what it is that you want to go for. The other option is kind of if you just are like, you know, I just want to see how good of an item I might be able to get. That would be the third type of rolls that you can do, which would be attack, more attack, harvest, reforges. So like you would once again craft on prefixes cannot be changed, and then you would slam it with the attacks and attack plus attacks are more common. And the reason why you do that is because that hits the attack speed. It hits. It does hit the life on hit. It hits the additional arrows. It hits the critical chance. So it hits several things that are good. The downside, like it hits, you know, most of the stuff that's good for us besides the multiplier. It hits 3 of, you know, like our top picks. The downside is that it hits other things that aren't so good. Life gained on hit, this really isn't that good. If you want life on hit, go for an Elder Ring. That's going to be, you know, really good. It hits percent global increased accuracy, and it hits bleed chance, dual mod, which, you know, those are pretty high roll chances. The critical chance is pretty high. The bow chance, the additional arrows is really low. And you know the attack speed is lower than the crit chance, slightly higher than the bleed chance. So if you want to, you know, kind of just like buckshot it and hope you hit a couple things that are good, that might be what you want to roll with. I'll be honest, I do that sometimes. But if I just, you know, want to get the best item as quickly as possible, do the non-influence base, go for the attack speed, slam the influence, warlord, and then craft your last stat, which is what we're going to do now. Okay, so we've got this in this position. We've got the attack speed. The owner of this item is stoked about this. So let's hope that he gets one. Oh, well, look at the possible mods. Everything that you can get is going to be good. Just the way I said it was, it's 100% win situation. But the question is just how much are you going to win? So we got Coaling Strike, dual mod physical with Maim. It's not a lot, but that would still be sweet. I mean, any of these, because of the Maim chance, would be awesome. Chance for phasing. This is cool. It's a good chance to have phasing. And then skills fire an additional projectile. That's obviously the super win. This would be another super win. This is really, really good. This is good, but we already have some phasing chance. I'm pretty sure he's going to have phasing chance. So it's definitely the least desirable, but they're all good. So let's hope he wins big. Coaling Strike! Alright, that's awesome. So he hit probably the second best mod that he could have hit. I mean, I would have been that stoked about. They're all good mods, but that's awesome that he hit the second rarest. But yeah, that's fun doing. So now the last thing is just to craft on the last stat. We're going to be doing critical. Pretty cool. So we're gonna do this one, strength and intelligence. The reason why is because it's omniscience build. So yeah, he will want that. Cool. And then we'll just have to divine this, and then this will be a monster weapon. This once it's divined should be, I think, close to 700. We're missing quite a bit on the number to number. It's missing 10 on the bottom of the number to number, 4 on the top, and it's missing a total of 12%, 13, 12, 13, 14% possible on the percent, and then obviously that has 8% increased effect. So yeah, this is a very, very nice bow. This one particularly, it actually, this one hit on the more expensive range of crafting. I mean, it came out amazing, but it did hit on the more expensive range. I did wind up having it roll on the 50/50 for prefix or suffix. It actually hit on suffix 3 times in a row, and I had to re-roll the physical and percent physical on it. So even in that case though, like you couldn't buy something this crazy for what was put into it. So if you want, and no one's going to put the effort into making one of these and sell it for a loss. The only way you're based on the market. I mean, there are some leagues that I'll craft bows and I'll have more into them than they're worth, but normally that's because no one's playing the build that I'm playing. That's the sad life of the person that doesn't always play what's popular. Anyways, I hope this video helps you to craft yourself your own sweet bow. Luckily, there are other people playing PDPS conversion builds this league. So, hopefully this will help out a bunch of people. If you guys want more stuff on the Tornado Shot Omniscience build, physical to cold conversion, this is what this bow is being made for. That's what I'm playing. There's going to be tons of crafting videos coming out over the next few days. So, or are already out. I don't know which one it is depending on when you're watching this, so maybe just give it a search. If you're not yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on farming strategies and gear crafting. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace.